the start of another work week, another Monday here in Nova Scotia, and we continue to keep our eye on what's happening with forest fires. Nova Scotia officials keeping a close eye on the fire in the Annapolis Valley. Scott Tingley, manager of Forest Protection, says the Long Lake fire is expected to grow. It is spread over nearly 20 square kilometers, moving toward West Dalhousie Road in Annapolis County. Fires forced evacuation of about 100 homes in the heavily wooded West Dalhousie area, about 125 clicks west of Halifax. So, again, lots of tension there, and rightfully so. Some rain through the overnight hours last night, but really not what look, we'll take what we can get, obviously. When it comes to precipitation, anything's better than nothing, but what we need is some protracted periods of rain, like we're talking days here, folks. Like if we get 2 or 3 days of real nice deluge, a nice soaking of rain, that would be ideal, obviously. But look, it's tough times. Tough times for everybody involved, including the agriculture sector. This is in the heartland, of course, of our agriculture sector where this is happening, and lots of concern about the family farms and look, folks, it's difficult for sure. It absolutely is. So we will continue to track this, and we will certainly give you the latest as it comes our way. And yeah, it's tough. It's very, very difficult. It's been a rough summer, folks. We're in a rough stretch here. Also, a rough stretch for the traveling public. Could be another chaotic day for travelers who book tickets with the country's largest airline. Thousands of unionized Air Canada flight attendants are expected to remain on the picket lines today. As a battle against a federal return-to-work order continues, the federal government intervened in the dispute because of its impact on Canadians and the economy. Air Canada has said it would push back its plans to get flights back in the air until this evening, even though the union said employees will remain on strike until a fair contract is reached. We will bring you the very latest on all this from Moshe Lander's perspective. Economist of Montreal's Concordia University. He'll join the show after the 12 o'clock news and get his take on this. And one of the things that perhaps you might want to weigh in on is collective bargaining. Is the process basically been neutered by this type of move? Look, collective bargaining is the leverage that unions have, and in particular when you're dealing with the public in such a way that airlines and travel does, that's the leverage. And if the federal government takes that away, then what do you have left? And I think that is an interesting question that I will throw out there is, does the government intervening in this way, does that undermine the collective bargaining process? And I would say that it does. Now, some of you out there would say that's a good thing, that the government should do this because, look, it inconveniences the public. There's millions and millions of dollars in lost revenue as a result of the business community, and there's lots of reasons to want Air Canada to not have disruptions. Nobody wants it to have a travel disruption, obviously. So the government, I think, reads the tea leaves here and the political winds and sees it as just that, a political win. So they make the decision to intervene. But again, what does this mean for labor and labor groups? And the Canadian Labour Congress is weighing in on this, and there's lots of concern about this, of course, as the federal government more and more often seems to be opting for this alternative. And again, for the general traveling public out there, you're happy if you had plans to fly Air Canada and you thought that the federal government intervening would get your flight back on schedule. I'm sure you would applaud it, or if your business relies on it, or whatever. But again, the bigger question is, I think, what does it mean for collective bargaining? And how about unions in general in Canada, in this country? Where do you think that unions, how much relevance do unions have? And look, I would say that unions always will have a role, have had a role, and should have a role somewhere in the labor spectrum. Some people say, oh, unions have no role anymore, just disband all of them. I don't think that is a good idea. I think that I think there's something to be said for unions and their upward impact on the job market and on jobs in general and benefits and all that. I think that if you look at the labor movement over the last 100 years, you could see that it is pretty evident. Without unions, the labor would be a worse place to be, for sure. That all said, though, folks, there's a lot of corruption within unions. Unions are very political. Unions create drag as well on in certain ways. So I guess what I will ask you is, what are your thoughts in general on the labor movement and the unions within it as part of these questions as well? So we'll open the phone lines in about an hour's time. Look forward to hearing from any of you, and, of course, whatever else you get in your mind. And I'm sure that something will come up over the next hour with our two councillors. Will motivate some people to want to talk as well. I'd like to thank Vanessa Vandeness on the other side of the glass of the control boards. Doing a fine job as always. All right, joining us now for our councillors on the hot seat, Billy Gillis, District 15, Lower Sackville, Beaver Bank. Billy, thanks for joining the show.
Thank you, Todd. Good morning to you and the listeners.
Indeed. And Shawn Cleary, District 9, Halifax West Armdale. Mr. Shawn Cleary, thanks for joining the show.
My pleasure, Todd. Happy to be here.
All right. So let's start with you, Billy. What's cooking in your district that you'd like people to know about? Anything that you'd like to pass along?
Yeah, sure. So Mayor Fillmore is going to be hosting a series of town halls in the Sackville area. And the first stop is going to be Lucasville this Thursday, August 21st at 6 p.m. at the Wallace Lucas Community Center in Lucasville, and it's open to the public. It's going to be a chat with the mayor and the local residents there, and we're also looking to host one in Lower Sackville here in the coming weeks. So we just don't have a date yet, but we'll get it nailed down.
Okay, sounds good. Shawn, how about you? What's going on in your world?
Pretty quiet these days, other than, dry conditions, as you already mentioned, and lots of people staying, thankfully, off the trails and out of the woods in District 9.
For sure. Okay. All right. Listen, folks, you know the drill. You know how it works. If you'd like to chat with one or both the councillors, give us a call at 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. Again, if you'd like to chat with Billy Gillis or Shawn Cleary or both, 902-405-6000. That is the way to get a hold of us. Shawn, I'll start with you and the regional plan. We haven't had a chance to talk about this since the provincial government rejected your regional plan. For those who don't know what the regional plan is about, give everybody a quick overview, and then I'll get your take on the provincial government's move here.
So the regional plan is the policy and the rules, the land use bylaw, around which land gets developed in HRM. So it is everything from what you can build, what your neighbors can build, where we want high density, low density, commercial, industrial, et cetera. And in fact, I'll just correct you a little bit. You said our regional plan, don't forget, in phase 4, we actually incorporated what we call the minimum planning regulations. That's what the province ordered us to do, no parking, et cetera. They actually rejected their own demand of us. So we're a bit confused.
Okay. And so, Billy, what's your take on this?
Well, I voted for it to pass it, but I did have questions. I don't think it went far enough to address development in the suburbs, specifically around Schedule J. I mean, I think we should be looking to remove Schedule J. So it's going to be interesting to see. We're going to have to take another look at this. I'm surprised they rejected the entire plan and not just pieces of it, because that has taken the planning staff many years to put together. So,
all right. So what's next, Shawn? What do you do? Back to the drawing board, or what's the next iteration of this thing?
So we're not entirely sure. We'll have some chats about that in the near future. What we do know is the province still requires us to make a number of changes, which, as I mentioned, they rejected their own changes. So now we've got to go back and see how we incorporate those. We've got to look at, and just to Billy's point about encouraging development, I will remind folks that in the last few years, so from the time we adopted the center plan until the second round of the Housing Accelerator Fund, we've actually enabled over 200,000 units of new developable construction in HRM. So we've actually gone above and beyond what the provincial and federal government required of us in order to get more homes built as fast as possible. We don't build homes, obviously, the private sector does. Mm-hmm. And so, we zone the land and hopefully they develop it. We've seen some rocky environmental and economic conditions these last few years. And so, development is happening, and in fact, it's happening quite rapidly. We've got loads of possible developable land out there, so development is not going to stop. So this is just in terms of us updating the regional plan. This was phase 4 of a five-phase update. So the next phase was scheduled to come in the next year or so. So, this is obviously going to delay it, and this is the irony in what the province has done in their haste to get development happen more quickly. They've actually slowed it down.
All right, setbacks for along waterfronts as far as developments go. What are your thoughts on? They said that 30 meters, or that was what you were looking for, and I think the province is looking for 20. Is that correct?
Well, no, we currently have 20.
Right.
We were proposing to move it to 30, but it wasn't a strict 30. So the other thing was to consider is through a development agreement, if someone could demonstrate that their land was impacted in terms of an extra 10-meter setback from a watercourse, they could actually go through a development agreement process, do hydrological studies, mapping, look at flood zones. They can do all the things necessary then to actually get over that barrier if their land required it. So it wasn't actually stopping development. It was just putting controls around here. And I think most people, given our climate's changing, given look at the importance of rainfall we have right now, and what we're seeing is storms these days are coming, rainfall is coming at greater distances from the last storm, but it's coming in larger amounts. And so my fear is, especially right now with the very dry conditions, if we had a big rainstorm right now, we would be in huge trouble because the land wouldn't be able to absorb the water. It would flood everywhere. And so this is why it's really important to look at these watercourse setbacks and see how we actually go about dealing with this in the modern context of a changing climate.
All right, Shawn, look, there's been a lot of, I think, a lot of abrasiveness with the provincial government and Tim Houston and of course, council, and tied in with that, of course, is strong mayor powers and what potentially is coming down the road with that. But what's your takeaway, Shawn, on the relationship right now between the provincial government and the municipal government, your council?
Well, it's not just the council. This provincial government doesn't like anybody other than themselves. They don't like school boards. They don't like hospital boards. They don't like, municipalities of any kind. And so, they would rather exercise the power themselves than actually delegate it out and hear from the residents in those areas that want, local solutions to their local problems.
Okay, so do you feel that strong mayor powers might be another extension of that, exercising of power and authority?
Well, no, sort of, but I mean, it's tangential, but not directly relevant. And actually, what's weird about this whole conversation is Tim Houston doesn't need strong mayor powers to control Andy. He's already doing that quite well, but also he's already taken over our transportation planning. He's taken over land use planning. He's taken over, pretty much everything. What's ironic is the one thing that they actually have control over and should exercise that control over, like coastal planning, they've actually pushed that back to municipalities and said, it's too controversial. We don't want to wear this. We're going to make you guys do it.
Billy, what's your takeaway on all that?
Well, just kind of waiting to see what the strong mayor powers look like. Should the mayor, should the office of the mayor have a little bit more flexibility, maybe veto power or something? I don't know what that looks like. Certainly something seems to be coming down the pipe. I'm going to wait and see, but as long as we still have local representation in there with the community, I think, obviously wait and see.
All right. Do you feel as though that the provincial government is overstepping its authority here?
Well, yes and no. The provincial government has always had authority over us regardless, whether there's strong mayor powers in there or not. I mean, the HRM charter is a creature of the province, so they have any time the ability to overrule us on anything. it's never quite been exercised before, but, we'll see what kind of direction we're heading in here.
Okay, fair enough. 902-405-6000. That's the way to reach us for our councillors on the hot seat. We got open lines for you folks. Give us a call. If you'd like to chat, if you'd like to ask one of the councillors or both the councillors a question, we've got Shawn Cleary and Billy Gillis on the line. Again, give us a buzz at 902-405-6000. That is the way to do it. We will be right back. It's Monday. That means we have our councillors on the line, Billy Gillis, Shawn Cleary, and we get some room for you as well. 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. Nicole's giving us a call. Hello, Nicole.
Hi, Todd. How are you?
Doing well.
Good. I'm so glad that we started this hour talking about jurisdictional issues between the province and the HRM, because I have an interesting one that seems to be exacerbated right now by the fires, which has resulted in a bunch of park closures, specifically Shuby Park. So between the 5th and 15th of every month, I am forced to walk my dog through the middle of the streets of my neighborhood because the sidewalks and the adjacent boulevards in my neighborhood are completely contaminated with pesticides from a commercial sprayer. Now, when you call 311 to report the issue, because it clearly states on halifax.ca that 311 actions pesticide complaints, they will tell you that pesticides are not an HRM issue and that they're actually a Department of Environment issue and that you have to go there. Now, licensing and signage is only in the purview of the province, not contamination of HRM right-of-ways. And jurisdiction and authority to act by the HRM was confirmed within 24 hours of a constructive notice that I sent when their chief engineer did a site visit, but he went to the wrong location. That doesn't matter. Now, I ended up speaking with the owner of the pesticide company who told me that he was given permission by the HRM to spray all boulevards as part of his customer contracts. But those boulevards are separate parcels of land, and therefore they actually require a separate sign from the province. And bylaw S300 actually contradicts the HRM's ability to even approve that contractor to offer that service on public land. Now, on the 12th, the Office of the CAO, all members of council were placed on constructive notice, which was confirmed by the clerk on May 14th regarding this jurisdictional issue. And instead of confirming or denying the claim by the contractor, the issue was actually escalated all the way to the senior litigator and head of litigation for the HRM, who only said no comment. And she did that after breaking a full chain of custody of a public record by removing the Department of Environment, all members of council, and the clerk from our correspondence. So I'm bringing this up because it's not a communication failure. It's actually a full regulatory breach, because if HRM did authorize this treatment, then under provincial regulations, they're responsible for ensuring that each treated parcel, including the boulevards, is individually signed and clearly marked, and that's never occurred. If HRM did not authorize this treatment, then it's responsible for identifying how a private contractor has repeatedly treated public land with no oversight, no enforcement. And either way, this is the jurisdictional failures that I'm talking about, and there's now a public risk to it. So the councillors know two things. Pesticide exposure on HRM property has occurred, has been occurring, and continues to occur. And HRM failed to confirm or deny authorization. They failed to enforce signage requirements, and they failed to respond to repeated notices. They have been served 3 times, which means at this point, silence is not neutral. It's a choice. All the councillors were required in the last notice to respond by July 3rd. None of them have. And it raises a simple question. Why are the councillors refusing to hold the HRM accountable when they have clear evidence that exposure and breach has occurred? Because if HRM did authorize the spraying, then provincial regulation was broken. If HRM did not authorize it, then public land has been treated unlawfully. Either way, animals, residents have been exposed to pesticides and chemicals for an extended period of time without their knowledge, and the councillors are sitting quietly. So my question for the councillors are, why have you remained silent on this? Because I know you've all been served, because you've been served directly and by the clerk of the council multiple times. And how long do you intend to avoid this issue while the public remains at risk, specifically now that all risk mitigation zones, i.e. the municipal and provincial parks that cannot be sprayed because of the bylaws that are in place, which are the same bylaws that should protect these boulevards, like, what are we going to do?
Okay. Either you wanted to grab this, councillors?
I think I've been copied on a few of these emails, Nicole. And so I do know that I think the issue was some like overspray on top of some sidewalk somewhere. And I believe, as she's mentioned, our chief engineer has responded, as well as Karen McDonald, our solicitor, has responded. So I would encourage you to work through your councillor and deal with whatever process. I'd be honest, I have no clue about the situation over there. But if you talk to your local councillor, I'm sure they could sort it out.
And what are they supposed to sort out? Because council is saying, and your litigator has said no comment. And by the way, the HRF litigator is not the litigator for council. So I'm hoping
our legal department speaks for council. So we have a number of different lawyers. Karen is our senior solicitor and litigation team lead. And so I'll leave it up to your local councillor and our legal department and our chief engineer. They know this bylaw way more than I do, and they know the provincial law way better than I do. So anyway, I would encourage you to work with your local councillor on that.
So let me ask you this then. If they know more about it than you do, then why is the only legal response no comment? Why is no one saying, yes, we did grant that authority, or no, we didn't?
I'm just looking at an email here that says municipality's position has not changed from Karen's email of June 23rd. So, I mean, I don't have that email, but you obviously have an email. And so, again, I would encourage you to work with your local councillor on the issue.
So, but here's the issue. No one's taking responsibility for it. The Department of Environment will not get involved, and HRM is saying it's not our issue, and it is your issue because it's an HRM right-of-way.
Well, pesticides, no, but I think there's a confusion around an intentional spray versus some overspray from someone's lawn, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, I encourage you to work with your local councillor on the issue. It's not something that's happening in my district. I think, is that Tony Mancini out there? Call Tony. I think he'd be more than happy to help you out.
Okay, this will be my final point on this. The contractor is saying he was given permission to spray the boulevard.
I don't know the contractor. I don't know the area. I can't speak to it. I have no information.
But you should, because you've been served notice. All council in the HRM
It's not my district. I would encourage you to work with your local councillor on it.
It's an HRM-wide issue, and what you're doing right now is showing exactly what Gloria McCluskey has been talking about with the incompetency of our council and the lack of clarity that you seem to have. You don't know who you are, where you're standing in the agreements that bind you to these places. And it is highly problematic, and you are literally exemplifying why people are so frustrated right now. Because
I've never heard of this issue in my district, so I can't help you.
You've been made aware as council who is responsible for holding the HRM accountable. Because I know that you are the council of the HRM, but there is an ethical wall between the two of you. And if you don't understand that, that's a problem.
I don't know what else to say to you, Nicole.
I'm sure you don't, but you did not respond to a notice that you were required to respond to. So your silence has been documented on that.
Okay, thank you, Nicole.
Thanks, Todd.
Appreciate it. Take care. 902-405-6000. That is the way to reach it for our counselors. On the hot seat, we get Shawn, Cleary, and Billy Gillis on the line again. 902-405-6000. Counselors on the hot seat continues when we come back. All right, continuing with our counselors, Billy Gillis, Shawn Cleary on the line. Then we got some room for you as well. 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. That is the way to get a hold of us. Roy's giving us a buzz. Hello, Roy.
Hey, Todd.
Hi there.
Hi, question for Billy.
Sure.
Well, not so much a question. Billy, I live in Beaver Bank. About 3 weeks ago, a company came up and they put down all new yellow lines and white lines from about the baseball field or the community center all the way up to the East Hants County sign. And then a week after that was done, they came out and tarred them all over and paved the same stretch of road. So now they got to put the lines down again. But the funny thing is that it was the best stretch of road in Beaver Bank. Why it was paved is beyond me. We've been inconvenienced for 3 weeks in the heat of this summer. Can't go in, can't go out, can't turn left, can't turn right. And the worst part of the road, from the bridge by the ball fields in Beaver Bank up past the community center, that could have definitely used to be paved, is untouched. Like, what a waste of government money. So who made that decision?
Thank you very much, there. I never caught your name. It was kind of staticky there, but I can answer the question. So that's a provincial project that's being led by the Provincial Department of Public Works. They are recapitalizing from the bridge at Beaver Bank out to the county line. It might not appear that it needed to be redone, but what they are doing is basically extending the life of the road. So that's a heavily used road, as you know, out to the quarry there. A lot of dump trucks and stuff use that road. So they're basically doing a preventative maintenance now on it to prevent a major capitalization like in the coming years. So I know it's technically inside HRM boundaries, but we are not leading the project on that. It is not an HRM project.
So in other words, what you're saying is that they're making the road better, so we can get 1,000 more dump trucks out there.
No, not so much that. Like, we have trucks that drive around and measure below the asphalt, like, so what you can't see, measure like the density and stuff. So, and I believe there's a scoring system. I think Councillor Cleary can help me out on this. There's a scoring system that they do to basically, extend the life of it. So it might not appear that it needs to be done, but we're not seeing what's below the surface there. So.
Okay, so what about the area from the bridge to the community center, which is about a kilometer with 7,500 patches? How come that wasn't done? That should certainly be needed to be looked at if it's about the weight of trucks.
Yes. So everything from there inbound all the way to Sackville Drive is responsible of HRM. So I know they're looking at the section right now from Sackville Drive up a little further. So they have all the lines and everything on the road there to potentially plane that next year and stuff. So yes, I agree. There are sections of the Beaver Bank Road that needed to be done before out there. I 100% agree with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, thank you, Billy.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks for the call. 902-405-6000. Maurice, hello.
Yes, hello. Is this Gillis?
Billy Gillis is on the line, yeah.
Okay, I want to talk about the houses on Covagood Road that they built there, 75 of them, I think.
Yep.
Yeah. Who's looking after that? Because the grass there looks like a jungle. The grass is about 2 feet tall. It looks like a friggin' jungle in there. I want to know who's looking after it.
So they are being operated by the United Way. Where is the grass at specifically? Because it could be maybe HRM land or something.
It's right around the whole community out there.
Like on the outside of the fence? You talking?
Yes.
Inside?
Yep.
It could be HRM property.
There's a big hill. They got a big pile of earth all around that place. And the grass is all growing on top of that, and it's hiding. You can't even hardly see the houses in there anymore.
I'll go over there. I never took notice. I'm by there quite frequently. I'll go after the show. I'll take a swing by there and see what I can see. But it is being ran by United Way, and as far as I know, they're doing a good job in there with the maintenance and everything and management of the place. So.
Well, the outside of it's terrible. It looks like a jungle. The grass is so tall there. It looks like a mess. If you ever see something like that, you can reach out to 311 either by phone or email, and they will be able to contact them and maybe put in a work order to have it trimmed. So, but after the call here, I will take a swing over and see what's up. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. 902-405-6000. Mark, hello.
Oh, thanks for taking my call. I'm on quickly this morning.
Yeah.
This question is for Shawn. Shawn, I'm just wondering, why you persist on this, constant issue with the bike lanes and fighting with the mayor through the media. It's really getting old and tired. I don't understand what the end game is here. We're supposed to be cooperating. Our city's in crisis, and I will allow you to respond to that. I'm just sick of it, and so are a lot of Haligonians and people that I'm talking to. So I just would like to hear your response to that, please.
Well, thanks, Mark. So I'm not the one fighting. I'm not the one who said we should remove bike lanes. I'm not the one who said we should stop building our bike lanes. We have a council-approved plan for bike lanes, and we need to continue that plan to make us sustainable and healthy and vibrant. And so why do you ask me a question? Mark, do you want me to answer the question?
Yeah, no. Hold on a second. Let me ask you one more question. Okay.
Yeah.
Why are you persisting, you and a certain councillors, when it's pretty clear at this point that it's been a disaster? And I will let you speak now.
I disagree with you. So it's not a disaster, and certainly not a disaster in District 9. The vast majority, I would say 90% of the people I hear from in District 9, by phone, by text, by email, by social media, want us to continue to build our bike lanes and want more sustainable and safe active transportation. So, and I know this is not universal. People out in the suburbs, people out in the rural areas hate bike lanes, hate cyclists, et cetera, et cetera. But in my district, and I represent my district, I'm doing what most of my residents want me to do. So I can't help you there.
Shawn, okay. No, I appreciate that you're doing what you're doing for your own district, but I mean, also you have not just been vocal about it in your district, okay? It's this bike lane issue. It transcends just your district in particular, okay? So living in District 5 downtown, I guess it's 5, right? So the whole issue with Morris Street and not 5.
District 7.
7, I meant. I go back and forth between 5 and 7, to be honest with you.
Well, and I could speak for Laura in this case, too. So she represents District 7,
okay.
And the vast majority of her residents want that bike lane, too.
Okay, well, I do not believe that, but that's okay. That's what you
can
believe,
look at the survey data we have. You can look at the calls that she gets, and you can ask her when she's on the show next. I guarantee you, way over 90% of her residents want it, too.
All right, thanks, John. Good sharp. Agree to disagree. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for the call. 902-405-6000. Craig, hello.
How you doing?
Doing well.
Just a question for Bill Gillis. So I live in Beaverbank as well as one of the previous callers, and we were talking about paving. Like I live on one of the roads down in the Kinsek area that's unpaved, and we had petitioned when Councillor Blackburn was involved, and we were told pre-COVID that HRM was going to partner with us and pave a road, and we would, assume a cost. I'm just wondering where we're at, and also second to that would be Bill, Cleary, and everybody else about these bike lanes, but we're HRM and we have tried
Sorry, Craig, we can't really hear you. Your phone, you're all broken up there. Your reception's not good, so. No, sorry about that. Okay, 902-405-6000. That is the way to reach us. Again, 902-405-6000. Give us a buzz. What would you like to chat with both the councillors? 902-405-6000. Chris is giving us a call. Hello, Chris.
Good morning, Todd and councillors.
Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, Shawn. I had no intention of calling in today, but to hear you say what you just said, I felt obligated on behalf of the constituents in my district to call. You've indicated that 90% of the people want bike lanes. Where is your survey?
So, well, there's several surveys, and I said probably for Laura, certainly what I'm getting is 90% of the correspondence that I get wants bike lanes for District 9, and I'm assuming it would be roughly the same for District 7, and from what I hear from Laura and the way she articulates her position at council, that sounds about right. And so I appreciate that maybe you and your friends don't like them, but if you were the councillor and you heard from the thousands of people that she's hearing from, that would probably be roughly the same proportion.
Well, you're saying it as though 90% of the residents want it. You are so wrong there, and you know it.
I was quite specific. I said 90% of the correspondence I received.
Yeah, the correspondence you're getting is from Bicycle Coalition people. The less than 1%
I get lots of correspondence from bikers too, just like you, Chris.
The less than 1% of HRM.
No, this is where we need to disagree, Chris. No, I have to refute this. In my district, and you can look at the census data, go to censusmapper.ca, and you can look at the dissemination areas for each of the districts. If you get down to the neighborhood level, in where I live, in my neighborhood, 10% of people use a bicycle to get to work and school. If you go down further to Vernon and Quinpool, that neighborhood, 20% of people use a bicycle. So this 1% has got to stop. It's ludicrous and it's fake news. If you actually look at where people live and who uses a bicycle, when you're in the urban core, and this is important for people to remember, over 50% of people who live on the peninsula walk, cycle, or take transit to work and school. When you get out into Hammonds Plains, Fall River, those areas, you get 98, 99% of people driving a car. So this 1% stuff has got to stop, because for people who live in the urban core, a huge number of them get to where they need to go by bicycle. A huge number of them get to where they need to go by walking. And a huge number of them get to where they need to go by bus. The vast majority of folks in my neighborhood do not use a car on a regular basis. So I need this fake news to stop, this whole 1% business.
Well, where did the 1% come from in the first place?
I don't know. People like you who are propagating it. There's no study. If you look at Halifax has one of the highest cycling rates of any city in Canada, even without our bike infrastructure. Imagine how great it would be if we had the bike infrastructure.
Oh yeah, it's just going to be so great, Shawn. Look, I drive this city every single day at all hours of the day, and you can cherry
most of the time, and I walk it most of the time.
Shawn, could I say something? I was polite enough to give you a few minutes to say something. Please let me speak, okay? This is one of your big problems and why people dislike you. You're getting calls.
I don't care if people like me or not, Chris. I care about making change to make this city more sustainable.
Oh yeah, right. Your agenda is off. And as far as Laura's district is concerned, she doesn't even live in our district. She lives in your district. She doesn't know what goes on in District 7. She has no experience in District 7. She doesn't live in District 7.
Steve Adams didn't live in Spryfield for most of the time he represented Spryfield. Do you think Steve Adams was not a good Spryfield champion? And Laura lived in District 7 when the boundaries were what they were in November. Only after they changed.
She doesn't live in District 7.
And you know what?
District 7.
Many councillors haven't lived in their district. Tony Mancini didn't live in his district for a good portion of his time. That doesn't matter to anyone.
It matters a whole lot to people, because
really being 3 streets away matters, does it, Chris? In urban Halifax.
So you've just agreed with me. She does not live in District 7.
You would have to ask her yourself. What I'm saying is the boundary changes, and you know what? The streets that she lives on are virtually identical to the streets you live on, and they're not very far apart.
Oh, that's not the point. The point is she doesn't live in District 7.
So then why doesn't the provincial government change the law to force people to live in the district that they live in?
Shawn, why can't you let someone else speak? Why can't you let someone else speak?
When people say ridiculous things, I need to cut them off to point out the ridiculousness of what they're saying.
No, you just want to cut people off because they disagree with you. You hate for someone to disagree with you because you know in most cases
if they agreed
you're wrong.
with me, I wouldn't have to cut them off.
You're taking a certain select group of people that contact you and saying the majority of them. Why don't we put this bicycle thing to bed for once and for all? Hold a plebiscite. And you say about the people in Herring Cove and out in the county, they're paying for these.
That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard, Chris. Holding plebiscite for bike lanes?
No, the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard is you being councillor. That's the most ridiculous thing.
All right.
Elected 3 times. There you go.
The other people out in HRM, they care about this. They pay property taxes, and they're paying for these friggin' bike lanes that we don't need.
If I had my druthers, I would have a toll on Quinpool Road. I would have a toll on Joseph Howe. I would have a toll on the 102, and I would charge those people for coming in. Unfortunately, Halifax doesn't have that authority.
Well, you'd be a great little dictator, then wouldn't you, Shawn?
All right. We're just going to end it
so
there.
are you saying London, Paris, Milan, Spain? I mean, think of all the cities in Spain that have congestion charges. Like, why do cities do this, Chris? They do it because it's good policy.
Yeah. I let Chris go just because we descended into something that I don't think is no longer productive. Anyway, 902-405-6000. That's the way to get a hold of us. Give us a buzz. Again, 902-405-6000. We'll continue with the councillors when we come back.
X.
All right, so we're continuing with our councillors. Billy Gillis, Shawn Cleary on the line, 902-405-6000. Wayne's a first-time caller. Wayne, go ahead.
Hi, how are you today?
I'm well, you?
Hi, Wayne.
I'm not doing too good. As for bike lanes, last Sunday I was on my bike. I was on my way to get something to eat at the store, and somebody in their car, in their rush to get wherever, opened the door on me and my bike, broke my ankle, drove me to the ground, cracked my collarbone, punctured my lung. And I'm 71 years old. Yeah, we need bike lanes. And they weren't watching what they were doing when they got out of the car. But I just want to go in and touch base like, the more bike lanes, the better. I'm just recuperating now.
That's awful what happened to you, Wayne. I'm sorry to hear that.
Well, so am I.
Yeah.
So put the bike lanes in, please.
Okay, thanks, Wayne. Glad you're okay.
No, I'm doing fine. I'm coming around.
All right, take care. 902-405-6000. Jeff, hello.
How are you doing today?
I'm well, you?
Good. I just wanted to question the math there, because I've been stuck in traffic several times in Halifax. On nice days, it would be beautiful to take a bike out. I don't know why you'd use the main arteries for bike lanes personally, but like the math is that how many people live in the actual peninsula right now?
That's a good question. I think the urban core is probably like 100 or 120,000 people.
Yeah, what's 10% of that? So, like, I just don't see
10% of 100 would be 10.
Around every day. Yeah, so where's this 10,000 bikers that you see every day? Because I sat in traffic for 6 hours on a bike lane and only seen one bike pass me. It was 21 degrees outside. So I don't know.
Oh my gosh, I saw dozens and dozens when I was out on my bike yesterday. And actually, we have bike counters, so you can Google or go to, I think it's called Bike Stats or Stats Bike. It's a Halifax social media account that actually tracks the bikes. And Sam Austin publishes this on his Facebook post. But you can see actually thousands of people in our bike lanes every month in each of the bike lanes. I think it was like 15 or 16,000 last month. And just so you know, there aren't any bike lanes on arterial roads. There are no major roads in Halifax with bike lanes. They're all on either connector or small side streets like Quinpool Road, Shabukdo, Roby. They don't have bike lanes. The most choking points coming into our city don't have bike lanes. So the Highway 102, the Armdale Roundabout, the McKay Bridge, none of these places have bike lanes. So actually, you need to separate this out. The mayor and the premier were very good at doing this, but it's actually factually incorrect. Bike lanes do not cause congestion. There's less than 1%, I think it's probably around 0.5% of our roads actually have bike lanes. So if 99% of our roads don't have bike lanes, you can see how bike lanes are not causing congestion.
I just don't see the numbers that you're seeing, like maybe on a Sunday or a Saturday or something like that. But
no,
like
every day of the week. Seriously, go look at the bike counters online, and you can see the thousands of people that are being recorded in the bike counters in the bike lanes.
I just think, you have it's a grid. The city's a grid. It should be easy enough to designate one or two streets in that grid to, have ample transportation for the bikes without having to spend a bunch of money.
That is the plan, actually.
Every time this frustrates me, I'm a big advocate of soccer in Nova Scotia. I'd like to see a stadium built. Every time something like that comes up, it gets shot down, but we have unlimited money.
Actually, the soccer stadium is on the agenda for tomorrow.
well, I'd like to see it happen because as a resident that comes out of town, into town, the economic spin-off is great. Every time we go down there, it's right in the city. We park our car, walk downtown, get something to eat. Usually end up spending, a couple $100 every game that we go to see, and we see many of them. And then, unlike a lot of my friends that are also in the suburbs that come in and do that, I think the business case has been one for the Wonders. They're probably the highest attendance in their whole league, and not only that, but a university city that could every university could benefit off of that facility. Not to mention whatever else could spin off it for sports and concerts, whatever venue you'd want to have out of it. And I just think that I'd like to promote that as well. So, thank you.
Okay, Jeff, appreciate it. Thanks for the call. All right, thanks, Councillors. We appreciate it. Billy, thanks for doing it.
Thank you both. Appreciate it.
Okay, Shawn, thanks for doing it. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Todd.
All right, take care. That's Billy Gillis, Shawn Cleary, and that got heated for sure, folks. So perhaps some of you might want to continue to pick up on what we talked about there or what was discussed. I didn't say much. I kind of tried to stay out of the fray. That's what I try and do during that segment as best I can is kind of stay out of the line of fire, if you will, because it's the opportunity that you have to talk with the councillors. And look, folks, it's pretty hostile environment, pretty volatile issue continues with this bike lane thing. And I don't think it's going away anytime soon. I just think it's going to continue to be controversial for sure. So perhaps you might want to weigh in on that or whatever else you've got in your mind. We've got an open hour. The way to reach us is 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. Your calls when we come back.
Facts.
Taking your calls, 902-405-6000. That is the way to reach us. Again, 902-405-6000. What is on your mind today? Again, whatever you'd like to get into, 902-405-6000. Perhaps some things that you heard in the last hour with our councillors. Things got testy, I will say, spicy, towards the end of the call-in segment as the ever-controversial topic of bike lanes reared its ugly head once again. So what's your takeaway on that? Perhaps you might want to get into that or whatever else you've got in your mind. Again, 902-405-6000. Of course, what's happening with air travel and the work stoppage with Air Canada. Of course, they were ordered back to work, legislated back to work, but the union is refusing to send its members back to work. So Air Canada is now canceling flights. And the traveling public is caught and stuck in the middle of all this. So what's your takeaway on what's happening with that and back to work mandates by the federal government, and does that undermine the collective bargaining process? I would suggest that it does. Now, whether or not you agree or disagree with the move, that's another thing. But I think it's pretty evident that it undermines the union's ability to collective bargain. I think that's pretty evident. Now you could say that you could support the government for doing that, saying that too much is at stake, the economy, the traveling public, tourism, business, whatever angle you want to take on that. But the bottom line is that it definitely it certainly makes collective bargaining less impactful. So I'm not sure what the logistics are here or what the legalities are here when it comes to what the federal government can do next. We'll talk to Moshe Lander about all this after the 12 o'clock news. We'll get his take on it. But what are your thoughts on labor and unions in this country in general? Or, again, whatever else you got in your mind. Again, 902-405-6000. That's the way to reach us. Again, 902-405-6000. Albert's giving us a call. Hello, Albert.
Good morning. I wanted to get on when the councillors were on, so I just want to maybe put forth the points that I wanted to. It mostly consist of Shawn Cleary's obsessive-compulsive behavior with these bicycle lanes. Now, don't get me wrong. I support bicycle. I like off-road transport. microtransport. That's a good thing to have to facilitate in our city. But the way he's going at it, he's cutting down huge swaths of the urban forest. I've mentioned this before. Our urban forest is in big trouble with Shawn Cleary in power. Now, this is a man who says he's actually come out and says he wants to increase traffic congestion to encourage people to ride bicycles. But here he's also supporting this widening of the north extent of Robie Street, which is going to involve cutting down dozens and dozens of mature hardwood trees. So I really wanted to talk to him just to get a sense of what goes on inside of his head, because everything he does is so contradictory. He wants to save the world from global warming. Okay, and he's constantly talking about sustainability being behind every project going on in the city. But while he's been in power for the past how many years, we've seen increasing encroachment on our commons, more paving going on around the Citadel, decimation of our green space through development. We've lost the wanderers' grounds to a private interest. And he wants high-density, high-rise construction. Well, high-rise construction involves the use of concrete, and concrete production is one of the leading causes of global warming, of greenhouse gases. So he just has this OCD with bicycle lanes, and he's been totally destructive toward the environment and our city with all his other projects. So we need bicycle lanes. It's nice to have microtransport, but there's a way to do it without encroaching on our urban forests and our green spaces. And they have to come first if you want a truly sustainable city. Okay, so that's my point there. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Thanks for the call. Appreciate it. 902-456-6000. Mike, hello.
Morning, Todd.
Hi there.
Have you heard of a company out of BC? It's called Edison Motors, I believe. They make electric tractor trailers or hybrid tractor trailers.
No, I've not.
I sent you a video earlier this morning. It might be something for you to look into, and if you do some research, might be a good topic to get some answers. So it's basically this guy in BC. He's created a tractor trailer that's completely electric. Electric motors propel the truck. It has a series of batteries which they work off of, but it has an onboard C6 cat generator, and it has all the capabilities of a regular tractor trailer. And because it has its own onboard generator, it's eliminated the range issue. It produces 80% less emissions than a conventional tractor trailer. And the government is shutting him down because of the generator he's using is not considered, it's not an emissions tested, road approved engine. They want him to use, take an engine from an actual truck and use it. Mm-hmm. And he's just trying to explain to him that it can't be done. He needs a generator because a generator senses the load cells and the batteries, and then it knows when to put the fuel to it. And he said it just can't be done with a conventional engine. So here's this man who's tested these vehicles. He has his own logging company, and he's used them. He's proven them. He's sold some to other people. It's a proven machine, 80% less emissions, and the Liberal government is shutting him down. I find it just so ironic. They want to drop emissions and have everyone in the electric or hybrid, and this guy has a proven machine that's working and doing exactly what they want, and they're shutting him down. It might be something for you to look into.
For sure.
For
sure. I'll look at the video and perhaps have him on because I think it's interesting. Like you said, for sure, I'll look into it, Mike. Thanks for bringing it to my attention.
All right, see you later.
Okay, take care. 902-405-6000. That is the way to reach us. Betty Ann's giving us a call. Hello, Betty.
Hello.
Hi there.
Yeah, I'm calling about the bicyclists, right? And the bus. I was on the bus one day in the South End, South Street. Mm-hmm. And when you get on the bus, you go in the front of the bus and get on. Mm-hmm. And when you get off the bus, you have to get off in the back on the side. And I started to get off the bus, but the bike lane is right there. I have to step in the bus the bicycle lane, right? And I just happened, I don't know, I just happened to, I want to get off, but I saw this helmet, right? That would have been on the bicycler. And then I pulled back in because he would have hit me, and then we both would have fell on that cement, and we both would have died. And this is the God's truth, right? And so I just wanted to let you know that that bike lane is right. It's just right by the bus. You have to get off in that lane. Stop the bus. So if they're going to continue to do that, they're going to have to educate them and let them know that when the bus stops on any stop, that the bicyclist has to stay back in the front of the bus, off the bus. And it was there. I mean, we both were crashed.
Okay.
And that's what I just wanted to let you know.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate the call. Take care. 902-405-6000. That's the way to get a hold of us. Again, 902-405-6000. We'll continue with your calls when we come back.
Facts.
All right, 902-405-6000. That is the way to reach us. Again, 902-405-6000. That is the way to reach us. Let's go back to the phones. Talk to Dave. Hello, Dave.
Yes, Todd. Thanks for taking my call. Just like to get to something very, very important, and that's the Air Canada labor issue and flight attendants who, I think it's under CUPE, who are defying going back to work despite the order via the Liberal government, Carney, and Labor Minister. So this is unprecedented in what I can recall. I was in a big union, which I won't mention, but it's precedent setting, and it'll be interesting to where this goes. And the reason I'm calling in is Air Canada. I mean, it's costing our economy millions of dollars, and eventually possibly up in the billions when it comes to moving people around our nation. And I think what they're doing is again unprecedented. Can you imagine, Todd, if this was a conservative government that ordered the union back to work, and then them defying? You know, we would never hear the end of this. So this is just an interesting thing. Now, again, when it comes to labor, I kind of look on both sides, and I was a union man for a very big union. CUPE is a very big union, very strong union. And I kind of look at both sides. Now, I always look at not just the wages, the salary. I also look at the benefits that are involved in their benefits packages. So if you want to get into that, the flight attendants, they got some good benefits once you get your seniority, like anywhere, Todd. You come in as a casual or a term or on a contract. Once you get in and your foot in the door. So I look at all the aspects, but I don't think I've ever seen a situation like this where the union is defying the government work order to get back to work. So where this goes from here, I mean, it is going to cost millions. You got people stranded. We're already lacking tourism, the greenback from down south. I mean, I'm looking at all the things that Carney, and again, he didn't get my vote, but again, and I keep an open mind, I can see where he's coming from. We need to keep our air traffic flowing because Canada right now is a bit of an economical mess because we have no tariff agreement with the United States. China just levied a 78% on canola oil, which we produce in mass amount, billions. We seem to be the kicking bag right now for everybody. And I think it is. And again, I always leave a little wiggle room. Where is Carney coming from? I can see the point. Get back to work because we need, and then we'll deal with it. But no, they're defying it. And don't forget, Canada Post is, the Cup W union is still unresolved. So there's a lot of things going on right now that I haven't seen. And I know Carney says, look, a bad deal is better than no deal. So I understand that, but in the meantime, Canada is hurting right now when it comes to a lot of the ongoings under this new government. And I want success. I've said this before, Todd. I want success for our country. We have a lot of potential here. So anyways, I'm just keeping a close watch on this Air Canada situation, because this is something that it could involve everybody if you have anybody coming in and out of town, business-wise as well, right?
Yeah, huge impact. And obviously that's why the government decided to legislate them back to work. That's why. Because
well,
of the
I think they're trying to legislate.
Yeah, they're trying to, but again, I don't know what the precedent is for a union to be ordered back to work and to say no, we're not going back to work. I don't know what the legal ramifications are or what, but obviously the union's pretty desperate to defy the back to work order, right? And I don't know what the ramifications are, what the legalities would be for this. I'm not sure, but
from what I've seen in past, union heads, people that are head of the union, could be jailed. I believe I've read that before, and that's severe. I can't see that happening, but it's an interesting twist to see what happens, and hopefully we'll see some results soon. But I don't know. It just seems every day something happens in this country, and we're not moving ahead. So, anyways, Todd, thanks for giving me a call.
All right, take care.
Cheers.
All right, 902-456-0000. And again, what are the legal ramifications? I don't know, and I'll ask Moshe Lander this when he joins the show after the 12 o'clock news. Because if the government orders the union back to work and the union says we're not going back to work, what's that? Well, the law of the land is, are they breaking the law? I would assume that they are. 902-405-6000. John's giving us a call. Hello, John.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm well, you?
I'm calling about the bike lanes. My daughter she passed the bike, then she went into a fast food drive-thru. The cyclist came up to her, started yelling at her. He kicked her car and damaged her, like $800 worth of damage. It's repaired now, but my question is, how would she be able to figure out who it was that did this? There's no information as to who the person was. There's nothing on his bike. That's one of my questions.
Well, I guess the answer is that there is no way to identify that person.
Okay, so there's a problem there. The second statement I want to make, I'm a transit operator, and I do agree that we should have bicycles in the city, but I would like to see it done better as per pricing and where we're going to put the lanes at. But are any of the councillors going down the streets on a bus to see the combustion that is making all the traffic that's making?
Well, I don't know. That's a good question. I'm not sure how many councillors ride transit or ride buses or ride bikes. I don't know that. That's a good question.
Ask them to take a drive down South Park Street during peak times to see what type of traffic you're going through. Your bus is inches away from the mirror on the passenger side and inches away from the vehicle on the other side. That's what we go through and the traffic there.
For sure. Absolutely.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Take care. 902-405-6000. Ralph, hello.
Hi. I've got the same comment, I guess. I'd like to invite the councillors to come drive through town back and forth from Point Pleasant Park out to the new roundabout. It doesn't matter which direction you go, it's literally traffic is stopped because of all the construction, because of all the detours. Even the tractor trailers have trouble getting through now. It's 45 minutes from Point Pleasant Park. I work at the container piers out to the roundabout. It doesn't matter which way you go. I don't think they have a clue of what they're causing. And the city planners are supposed to plan things so that traffic flows smoothly. They don't. They want to slow everything down to get to their agenda with bicycle lanes. Put them on the side streets. Don't put them on the main street. The main streets are specifically to move traffic, not tourist routes. Anyways, that's my point.
Okay.
Maybe we get the councillors out there looking.
Thanks for the call. Take care. 902-405-6000. That is the way to reach us. Give us a call. if you'd like to weigh in on the ongoing bike lane issue, it continues to be controversial and probably will for a very, very long time. I know that many of you are fatigued about talking about it and hearing about it, but it's what callers are bringing up, folks, so it is what it is. 902-405-6000. What are your thoughts on that? Or, of course, it's Air Canada strike, and of course, the government, and it's tried to get the planes back in the air by ordering the flight attendants back to work, but the flight attendants have said no, they are not. They are refusing to go back to work. So now Air Canada is canceling flights, and the traveling chaos continues here in Canada. 902-405-6000. That is the way to reach us. Again, 902-405-6000. We'll continue with your calls when we come back. Continuing with your calls, 902-405-6000. That is the way to get a hold of us. Again, 902-405-6000. Brian's giving us a call. Hello, Brian. Brian, are you there? Okay, put Brian on hold and see if we go back to him. Daryl, hello.
Hey, Todd. How you doing today?
I'm well, you?
Not too bad, thanks. I was listening to your show earlier with Cleary. And let me tell you, this man is a bully, an absolute bully. The way he was talking to some of your guests that were calling, and I was a little bit disheartened by the fact that you never get in the middle and stop that.
Well,
like, I don't understand it.
Well,
he was bullying the crap out of people, but he was walking all over people.
Yeah.
He would never talk to a person face to face that way. I guarantee you would.
Yeah. Well, Daryl, look. I think that I do my best during that segment and that segment only to try and stay out of it, because it is about having callers talk to councillors and allow that conversation to go where it goes. Look, I take your criticism.
I appreciate that part of it. I do, and I know that it's kind of a tough situation for you to be in.
Yeah.
But he needs to learn. He's got to listen to people. Not everybody is in favor of what he wants.
Yeah.
Out here in the suburban areas, we're fighting for sidewalks. Barely. A lot of our streets don't even have sidewalks out here.
Sure.
And all he wants is $100 million worth of bike lanes. It's not the bike lanes, it's the cost. It's killing people. These costs are killing people. They're driving up our property taxes. They're driving up our rents. All because of some bike lanes? I mean, we got people losing jobs all across the country. We got strikes going on. He's worried about bike lanes?
Yeah.
And the way he fights that with people is that he bullies them. He beats down on them with all these so-called facts, and then he calls everybody else fake news. He sounds like Donald Trump sometimes, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, Daryl, listen, I take your point.
I think he just needs to learn to talk to people, Todd.
Yeah, I take your point. I don't think that anybody would see that as productive, because it certainly wasn't productive, and it descended into something that was not good. And perhaps I should have got in the middle of it, but look, I just try and stay out of the fray when it comes to that segment, just by nature, just because. But I take your point, Daryl, and it's unfortunate that it has to descend into that. And I don't think it helped. I certainly don't think it helps Shawn Cleary at all. I don't think it helps his movement at all.
No.
And I don't think it helps his personality or helps him as a brand.
I agree. I think maybe next election the people of his district need to really take a good hard look at this and say, is he really, looking out for our best interests? He's just looking out for bike lanes. He doesn't seem to care about anything else. It's like the bike lanes are the only thing that are going on in his world. Yeah. That's all it seems like. It certainly comes across that way.
Yeah. Okay, Daryl. I take your point.
Thanks, Todd.
Okay, take care. 902-405-6000. Brian, hello.
Hello. How you doing?
I'm well. You?
Good. I just got an inquiry about the woods being shut down.
Okay.
And as far as say you own a cottage and you're waiting for a load of windows to come in your building. Are the delivery drivers allowed to go in on the homeowner's property if it's not like a woods trail, but, like a cottage lane, and go in on their property and deliver? Is that okay?
I don't want to answer any of those questions because I don't have the authority to do so. So I don't want to give anybody bad advice. Okay. I can't answer that, Brian. But I think it speaks to the broader question of a lot of confusion out there as to what is allowed and what isn't allowed, right? And I think that there's a lot of confusion out there, and hence a lot of frustration out there, right?
Well, yeah, and you don't want to get yourself in a situation you don't have to be in. Is kind of what I'm wondering.
Yeah, are you in that? Is this something you're dealing with?
No, just kind of come across my brain, and just thought I'd run it by one of the smartest men on the radio.
Well, you better find him. Hopefully you can find who that person later on today. Thanks, Brian.
All right. Thank you.
All right, take care. 902-405-6000. David, hello.
Hey, how's it going today?
It's going well, you?
Just trucking around out here, wonderful Spryfield, trying to make a dollar,
Nice.
I got a couple of thoughts on the Air Canada thing. I was reading the newsprint there. The federal government of Canada has an interest in opening up the airways for outside the country competition. Let's say United Airlines open up kiosks and starts flying Halifax to Toronto. What do you think that's going to do in the grand scheme of things with the way this strike is playing out? Because you and me, everybody's tired of people with these federal government jobs, whether it's Canada Post or the Department of Education or if it's Air Canada, crying for more money year after year after year. And it's like the politicians. They get their raise every year after year after year. Now, I support all you Air Canada workers. I hope you don't go back to work. God's obvious. But it's like this. I'm going to show you the writing on the wall. Your jobs, days are numbered. Just like Canada Post. Canada Post is subsidized. They're sending mail off with private carriers now, right? There's no pushback if you want to take your child out and put them in home education or send them to a private school. There's no pushback there. And it's the reason being is because the federal government's so friggin' overinflated. They're trying to cut it any way they can. So we lose our tax-paid services that have been scoffed away for decades over this. What's next?
Well, Air Canada's not a crown corporation. Air Canada, the flight attendants don't work for the federal government.
The attendants, I guess, not. But overall, you know what I mean? Is that it's a federal entity. I think they're looking to slim it down. To be honest, I think there's going to be a lot more privatization in the next decade in Canada. We're going to see a lot of outside companies coming in and setting up shop to run and manage things, much like, the Cobequid Pass tolls were managed by an American company for years, and then there was any one thing you want to touch base on. There's all kinds of stuff screwed up. I feel bad, I really do. I used to love this place. I grew up here my whole life, and I've seen mismanagement, and all our councillors, most of them are millionaire landlords. There's something wrong with that, too. I don't want to take up all day. I got a load to drop here, so I should probably get off the phone, you know what I'm saying?
Okay, David. Appreciate the call. Take care. 902-405-6000. Look, folks, will the federal government open up the heavily regulated industry of airlines to other players, including American players? I don't know if that'll happen or not. Of course, if that happens, there are ramifications and there are impacts to that. And it would likely result in lower fares and better for the consumer for sure. But again, there are reasons why that's not always a good thing. First of all, shareholders in Air Canada and Porter and WestJet would be impacted because if you open it up the market to more competition, then you're going to dilute the companies that exist. So it's very complicated, right? It's like telcos, same thing, right? Big telcos. You get three major players here in Canada, and some say that we should open that up. The banks as well. Again, some say that shouldn't be as heavily regulated as it is. But there is give and take to everything, and there are nuances, and there are reasons why it would be good and reasons why it wouldn't be good. 902-405-6000. Sheldon, hello.
Just a quick point, Todd, just regarding Sheldon Cleary making decisions on behalf of Haligonians. He has his position as a councillor with 2,578 votes. And we got to be careful about letting people make decisions on all of HRM with that little amount of support. And that's taken right from the Halifax 2024 election results, which is online.
Yeah.
That's a dangerous place we're in when we let guys make decisions for the whole city with that little of actual support. And that's true about a lot of the councillors.
Well, there's just one councillor. There's one vote of 16, right? Of course. So that. Anyway, Sheldon, sorry, let you go. Sheldon, but listen, that's the way democracy works, right? It is, but this plays to what some people are calling for, including the mayor and strong mayor powers, because some feel as though that is needed. But what strong mayor power do is that gives that some would say that erodes democracy even more, because that gives more power in the hands of one person potentially. We don't know what those powers would look like or what the legislation would look like, but we can assume that it would be something like if in fact the mayor would have to get a third of council support, then he could pass bills. And that would radically change, of course, the governance structure in HRM, which has been in place now since amalgamation. So what's on your mind today, folks? We got open lines for you. We got some room for you as well. 902-405-6000. Give us a call. 902-405-6000. Give us a buzz. Again, we get open lines for you. 902-405-6000. We'll continue with the open hour when we come back. All right, continuing with your calls, 902-405-6000. It's an open hour again, 902-405-6000. Here's an email from Kathy, then back to the phones. Kathy says, today's version of Shawn Cleary was a disgraceful representation of HRM. As the person representing our city on radio, he needs to learn to present himself in a more professional manner. Whatever points he's trying to make are lost because of his combative nature and disrespectful nature towards those asking him questions. It's a low point for a councillor to laugh at callers' opinions, whether or not that caller is educated, wrong, or right. Mr. Cleary, education will take you further than degradation. He goes on to say, in addition, I would like to ask if the goal of bikes is to decrease vehicular traffic and therefore congestion, why do we continue to hear only about how many bikes are on the roads? It seems to me that the number is irrelevant when presented by itself. Isn't the key data point how many fewer vehicles are on the roads rather than the number of bikes? At best, show us the data that shows us how bike traffic is increasing while at the same time vehicular traffic is decreasing. That comes from Kathy. Thanks for sending it along. 902-405-6000. Fred, hello.
Todd, how you doing? Thank you for that spicy councillors on the hot seat thing. It was quite entertaining. What it did is it made me an advocate of strong mayoral powers. And the reason being is that if a person's that closed-minded and he's not listening to his constituents, and he says he's listening to his constituents, then there's an issue. And it's not just on bike lanes, it's on a lot of things. And oh, by the way, I'm an advocate for bike lanes, but at the right cost, at the right place, and the right place to put them. He was spouting off 1% of the roads have bike lanes. I don't know where he got that information. I'm a professional driver. Most side streets I know in Dartmouth, where I reside, are bike lanes. They have speed bumps on them. There's bike lanes on them. You can get virtually anywhere you want in Dartmouth on a bike, okay, by using the side streets, not the main streets, even though there is one down Wise Road, okay? And if you have a problem with, like, let's say, a company, like Bell or whatever, and you're not getting satisfaction at the base level, which in this case is the the councillor. Mm-hmm. What do? You go up the line, and the next order of business is the mayor. Well, he doesn't have any powers to do anything, so what's the next place you go to? The province. And I bet you his phone rang off like crazy, and that's why we're at where we're at, because people are phoning the provincial government saying this group of councillors is not listening to us. And this is why we need strong mayoral powers. And it doesn't just have to do with bike lanes. It has to do with Tony Mancini and his lack of wanting to put anything on a sports facility up in Burnside anymore. It has to do with all these other things. Sam Austin, who's in my section, not listening to the people that live on certain streets where he wants to close and shut them down and force them to go on to Victoria via their normal route, which is what would be at either side of the end of Slater. I mean, it's a whole series of events that is culminating this. And one final word on the Air Canada strike for Conservative Dave. This is not precedent setting. It's happened before. They turned around. They arrested the leaders of the union members, and they've also sent the RCMP in at times to break it up. So it's not precedent setting. That's all I got to say.
Okay, Fred. Appreciate the call. Take care. 902-405-6000. Mark, hello.
Hey, Todd. Just on the bike lanes, I'm not against any bike lanes, but I think instead of spending like $100 million outright, wherever there's a chance to put something in when you're doing new work, you do it. So you just do it gradually, and it'll get done eventually. And as for Air Canada, I'm a big union guy, and if they are forced to go back to work, well, all that free work that they were doing, I got a simple solution. Stop doing it. They call management, tell them to come in and do it if they want it done. But if you're not going to pay me for any work when I work for a multi-billion-dollar company, I'm not going to do it. You don't pay me, I don't do the work. And we say we live in a democratic and free society here in Canada. Well, it was just proven again that we don't by the same Liberal government that did it to Canada Post. That's it for today.
All right. So, Mark, what about those out there who justify it by saying that the economy relies on it, tourism relies on it, so much is at stake? What's your response to that person that says that is needed? That's why the government had every not only a right but an obligation to step in. What do you say to that person?
Well, bring in some competition so it won't be an issue. But also, the only reason why it's gotten to this point is because the CEOs and all the presidents and all those guys of Air Canada know that this is the way it's going to work in the end. If they drag it on long enough, that this is what's going to happen. And they are in cahoots with the friggin' government. We all know that. So, it's been proven that I can't remember who said what, but there was something in with Carney and some of the dealings that he had with Air Canada. So, it's obvious where it was going to go.
Okay, Mark, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Todd.
Take care. 902-405-6000. Julian, hello.
Hello. Just wanted to comment on the province taking over or giving the mayor more powers. I know it's a minority, but I actually agree with it. I think that the mayor is elected by the entire city, whereas the councillors are elected by only a small portion of the city. So I don't know. I don't know what the system should be. Maybe give the mayor powers like the president, in the sense that it would take 2/3 of majority of this council to override the mayor's veto. There's something like that. The mayor should have more power than a councillor. He's elected by way more people than councillors are.
Yeah. Okay. And it's a shame that council appears to be so fragmented and dysfunctional right now, right, Julian? This is not working. What's happening right now does not appear. It appears it's pretty evident is not working.
Well, this kind of crisis only happens when politicians basically go against the will of the majority, and by this I mean the vast majority of the people. This would not be an issue if the majority of Haligonians believed that we should spend $100 million on bike lanes. Obviously, the council is going against the majority. They probably went against the majority in the 3% environmental tax as well, and that's why there's a revolt. I mean, this happens in every democracy when governments say when people want to control immigration at a certain level and government just ignore them, people get angry, and that's why people are angry now.
Yeah, people are definitely upset. There's no doubt about that. At least people calling this show are upset. So, Julian, appreciate the call.
Okay, thank you.
All right, take care. Thanks for the calls, everybody. We appreciate it very much. Again, when it comes to the segment, the Councillors on the Hot Seat segment, it certainly got off the rails today. That's for sure, with Shawn Cleary and with some callers. And it's, look, I try and stay out of it during that segment just because it's by nature of what it is. And I invite the councillors on, but perhaps I could have stepped in, but I did not. I guess it's unfortunate that it devolved into what it did, though. I think anybody listening to it would tell you that it was not productive at all. But look, it's not the first time Shawn Cleary's gone up against it when on the show, and probably won't be the last. So anyway, thanks for the calls, everybody. We appreciate it very much. Speaking of the Air Canada work stoppage, and as it continues, what's the fallout of it? What's going on with what's the very latest? Moshe Lander, economist from Montreal's Concordia University, joins us when we come back. Air Canada says the Canada Industrial Relations Board has declared the strike by some 10,000 unionized flight attendants illegal. It has ordered the union's leadership to tell its members to return to work and to end the strike that has grounded hundreds of flights during the busy summer travel season. The union ignored a federal return-to-work order over the weekend and took to the picket lines outside several major airports across the country. It has said the walkout will continue until a fair contract is reached. Well, the airline wants to have its planes in the sky by this evening, but that is not going to happen. Joining us to talk about all this is Moshe Lander, economist from Montreal's Concordia University. Moshe, this is a ever-evolving, fast-changing situation here, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Labor disruptions are always fluid on the ground. Okay,
so as of now, there are no flights planned for I think Air Canada has canceled its flights, has it?
I can't imagine that they can get anything going this evening, and even if they get the occasional flight going, it's certainly not the full complement of flights. So I think we're going to be talking a few days. Even tomorrow, I think it's going to be difficult to get going.
Okay. Do you think that the federal government was surprised by the union's insistence here and galvanized approach?
Well, the reason why the federal government intervened was because the two sides were so far apart, they weren't even speaking the same language. So if they were at least close, maybe the federal government would have sat back for a few days saying, all right, figure it out, you're near the finish line. But given how far apart, the fact that they jumped in and now seeing the union's response is maybe an indicator, too, that the union is not prepared to even have the negotiations. I think that's going to put the federal government in a difficult position. But, of course, when you intervene in these negotiations, you now better have a solution to make this work beyond just saying it's against the law.
Right. And what about the legality of all of this? How might is there some mechanism that the federal government could threaten the union or defying this order? What any legalities here?
Well, I'm not a lawyer, but you know the monetary fine is probably the only lever that the government would have at this point if they wanted to take action against the union. But that's probably more Air Canada's issue than it is the federal government's issue. If you remember back in the 1980s, Ronald Reagan dealt with air traffic controllers, but basically saying, show up on Monday or you're all fired. I guess there's probably provisions within the union negotiations with Air Canada or within the agreement with Air Canada that they're currently operating under that gives some sort of allowance that if you're in violation of the agreement, you're out of here. But of course, the problem is if you can't get the flights up in the air without the crew, then what good does it do you to fire everybody? At best, you're going to have to replace them, train them, and that's going to be weeks left on the ground as well. So I think it does give a little bit of power to the union as long as they're prepared for whatever consequences come out of their violation of the federal government's order.
Right. And do you think that the rank and file member is aware of the violation could have impacts, or is this, or does the union brass, are they the ones that would bear the responsibility for it?
Well, I think the information will filter out to them. It's not like they're living in isolation these days. So what's going to happen, I'm sure, is if they refuse to show up, then there's going to be, all right, you have until this date to actually get back to the job, or these are going to be the consequences. And that's going to be circulated pretty quickly, whether it's from the top down, or whether it's just reading social media posts as to what's going on. And then at that point, the rank and file members can decide what they want to do with their leadership and saying, we support you, or get back to the table, or help us get back to work, or whatever it is that they need to do to avoid whatever penalties might be coming their way.
Okay, so what about the financial ramifications for the company? I would think it would be obviously massive, right?
For the Canadian economy as a whole, and that includes Air Canada within the story, it's worth about $100 million a day in lost economic activity that's caused by keeping everything grounded. Now, for perspective, the Canadian economy as a whole is about $2.5 trillion a year. So we're talking about 1/2 of 1% of 1%. It's not going to add up, even if this extends for, say, 200 days. It's 1% of the Canadian economy that we're talking about. So it's not going to be the type of thing that we're now going to say 2025 is a recession year because of Air Canada. But it does have consequences, of course, and those things do add up. And in some cases, it's very difficult to recover that money. It's not like you're necessarily going to fly 2 times next week because you didn't get to fly each of this week and next week. So that's the type of thing that it does leave a lasting mark on the economy. And of course, it leaves a bad taste in the consumers' mouths because they really don't care who's responsible. It's that they can't get back from their vacation, or they can't get to their vacation, or they can't get their kids to school. And those are the types of things then that, going forward, maybe you say, I'm not flying Air Canada anymore. I'm going to look at an alternative. Who do you think
Generally wears that? Is it the company, or is it the consumer-facing flight attendant?
I think it really depends on where your position is between management and labor. So I think that if you have a pro-labor bent, you're probably going to find sympathy with the flight attendants and their position. If you're generally more of a pro-management, then you're going to find a favor, especially now that the flight attendants might have lost some of their sympathy with the public by defying in order to get back to work. When you're operating within the law, then you can pick sides. When you're operating outside the law, it's a little bit hard to side with those that are violating the law. But I think that in general, the longer that it lasts, it's probably going to reflect on Air Canada, not because they're being difficult to negotiate with. It's just that that's what you're going to associate the problem with, is that you don't go to your friends and say, the reason why I couldn't get home in time was because of the flight attendants. You can say it's because of Air Canada.
All right, so what might the federal government have left when it comes to ammunition, or when it comes to tactics, or when it comes to intervention? Can it do anything else at this point?
It's merely monetary fines, right? Like you can't force the planes up into the air, and you can't send federal workers to go work as cabin crew, right? Yeah. So like they really don't have any lever here at this point, other than to just repeat their declaration. But I think maybe a broader issue is that if they are seen to be something that can be ignored, then what does this mean the next time that we have a labor disruption? Unfortunately, because we've had so many of them in the last few years, in a way that we haven't seen for the last few decades, does this now become a playbook for anybody going forward, where they say, hey, listen, we don't even have to worry about the federal government telling us to go back to work. We can just disregard them. And even if there's a monetary fine, if the monetary fine is something that the rank and file members are willing to absorb as maybe higher union dues going forward, and say, hey, it's worth it. And that's the type of thing then where the federal government has to be careful that their credibility isn't compromised.
All right. And of course, Air Canada's competitors, this is good for their business, obviously goes without saying, right?
Absolutely, and we've already seen the consequences of it. WestJet, Porter, Flair, they've already started raising their prices, and it's not because it's opportunism. It's because there's one less competitor in the marketplace for those limited number of routes. And so I think if it drags on, you might find that they create some sort of promotion where come over to us and we'll give you a bit of a deal, only for the purpose of trying to attract your business going forward. But this is a problem in Canada in general, is that when you lack competition in a lot of industries, it does give pricing power to those that remain behind, and it just hands them even more when one competitor is sidelined.
All right. What about those who say that the federal government should open up the industry to other other players, including U.S. carriers, European carriers? What's your response to that?
I'm totally in favor of that. I've been arguing that for years. Canada is awash in oligopolies, monopolies, duopolies. We have a fundamental lack of competition in so many industries. And in the alphabet of those industries, of course, airlines is going to come at the top of that list. So look, as long as you follow Canadian rules and regulations and safety requirements, why can't we have Delta operating on the Toronto to Halifax route? It would create more competition. It would lower prices. It would improve the quality. It would improve the timeliness. And it would weaken some of the power of the vested interests that keep those prices so high. And in a country like Canada, where air is an essential part of transportation in this country, you can't go around having a lack of competition. So I'm all for it. And if the federal government wants to use that as the threat that if you don't find a way to get moving on this, then we're just going to open up the skies, fine, go for it. I think that they should even do it after this is resolved.
What's the pushback? What's the counter argument to it?
It probably means that some of Canada's airlines are going to find themselves quickly on the wrong side of profitability. They're benefiting from a lack of competition and allowing in the foreign airlines into the country. Of course, they're going to cherry pick the key routes. You're not going to see flights operated by Delta going from Halifax to Sydney, right? That's not a profitable route. And so it might not change some of the flying patterns for smaller towns trying to connect up, but for the big cities, they're going to find much more intense competition. It's probably going to change the nature then of the Canadian air system, because it's going to become a little more hub and spoke than it is already, where all of that competition is going to be Vancouver, Calgary, Winnipeg, Toronto, Montreal, and Halifax, and not some of the other cities. But hey, that's probably the price worth paying going forward to help alleviate some of the extreme costs involved in flying.
Moshe, always great. Appreciate your insight. Thank you.
Anytime.
All right, take care. Moshe Lander, economist from Montreal's Concordia University. When we come back, a chat with Duncan Williams, President and CEO of the Construction Association of Nova Scotia. We'll be back.
Thanks.
Duncan Williams, President and CEO of the Construction Association of Nova Scotia, and joins us for a chat. Duncan, thanks for joining the show.
Thanks, Todd. Glad to be here.
All right. So when it comes to this regional plan, which has recently been rejected by the province, you have concerns with how it was drafted and council's version of it, regardless, right?
Yeah, we certainly do. I actually sympathize with the council in this particular situation because the plan wasn't released to them until the Thursday before the Tuesday council meeting. And if memory serves, the document was somewhere around 1,923 pages of technical briefing. So for them to digest that and actually make informed decisions on it, it's really an uphill battle. Further to that, the industry that is going to be directly implicated, because we are the ones on the other side of it, the construction industry, that have to change practices to abide by the rules, which, is being introduced with no consultation. That was the other part of it. We received it at the same time everybody else did, with zero input ahead of time. So, we're looking at huge changes to a very rapidly growing city without any consideration for the folks that actually have to do the work. And that's where the challenge for us lies.
Okay, and you say zero consultation, and what I suppose what would you have liked to have seen?
Well, I think we're in the industry of building complex projects, so complex issues are not new to us, and we try to be a trusted source for government at all levels in terms of helping educate on the realities of the world we live in. You got to keep in mind that the people that work in the industry, the 43,000 in construction in Nova Scotia, we all live here too. We all work here, play here, travel the same streets. So why wouldn't you call in the people who have the expertise, who are being asked to put money at risk and to build what needs to be built? Without input into that, it's very difficult to have a set of regulations and rules that actually are common sense, that makes sense to everybody.
Okay, and how, I guess, when it comes to the process, what might it have looked like? Might it have been open town halls, or how might this consultation process looked in your opinion?
I think you could have gone about it in any number of fashions, where you could have had industry at the table as part of the discussion. understand the collective goals that everybody has, and then work backwards from there. Again, industry is not opposed to changing to meet demands of a new world, but it does require time to adjust and to make it attractive enough to continue to do that. And if we look at the trends, for example, right now, building trends in the center of the city are lower, and the building trends outside of the city are growing. And that's mainly because it is very complicated to build in the city for a number of reasons, plus the cost of doing it with all of the layered on cost factors that are being introduced through all of these new plans. It's just making it not marketable to do some of the projects that are in stream to be completed.
All right. So all the planning and all the wish lists and all that you can have, it's going to be irrelevant if in fact industry is not able to deliver. It comes down to that, right?
Yeah, well, Todd, the city's been working on this for 29 years, and that's an actual number. So would it have killed us to take 3 months and actually do a thorough consultation instead of the normal process where it's, kind of a black box? It's delivered by staff, very good staff, very talented, trying to do their best. We get that. But then it goes to council. They have little time to process and read through it. And industry is then we were automatically put on defense when it comes to some of the things that are built in there. And then there's no costing, no understanding of what the implications are on the average listener that is looking to buy or rent or lease a condo or whatever it happens to be. None of those factors were considered in this process. So the implications for some of the things that are in that plan, if they're introduced as they're proposed right now, would have had significant financial impact on renters and buyers and so on at a very critical time in our history when we're trying to look at how do we make housing more affordable.
All right, so the fact that the province rejected the plan, then obviously it's, I guess, back to the drawing board to a point, but do you think that the municipality and council will get it right this time, or have you had any dialogue with anybody at City Hall?
Yeah, I mean, we certainly hope that the municipality will actually embrace the hand that's been extended to them to say, look, we're here to help. I heard the councillor Janet Steele last week talking about lobbyists. Lobby is not a dirty word. It's sometimes the only way we can get input into the process because we're otherwise shut out of it. So part of our lobby efforts are actually providing advice and guidance on how you can do this and still maintain affordability and constructability.
Do you think it's realistic to have the targets, the growth targets that the municipality has and the province has? Is it realistic?
I think it's realistic if you are able to prioritize. The big debate is over bike lanes or no bike lanes. I mean, I think the forest for the trees here, right? We need to look at how do we move people efficiently and effectively around a growing municipality. And, one of the first things we have to do is look at the infrastructure to support that, whether it's trains, buses, et cetera. And certainly bike lanes can be part of that discussion, but we have to be realistic about where the big pinch points are. And right now it's the fact that we are very inefficient at moving traffic and goods from one point of this city to the next, right? And with the growth nodes that we're seeing, again, I go back to the point I made earlier, we're seeing more growth now that are outside of the core, which means more people are commuting into the core. So that's going to create new headaches in and of itself if we don't start to build out those corridors that are going to be able to support mass transit, active transportation, and of course vehicles that people need to drive to work and to deliver products and goods to market.
Yeah, for sure. And we know the coordination and working together it's always a good idea, right? It's always best to have that coordination and I'm sure that you'd be the first to stand up and say, look, they're doing a great job on that, right? You don't want to have this. You'd prefer not to have this chat with me today, obviously, right?
Absolutely. No offense, but I'd rather be doing something else. Absolutely. Yeah. And really that is the approach we always try to take. And we know that the people at council, we know the people that work for the city are great people. They're trying to do the very best like everybody else. All we're looking for is an avenue to have a much more cohesive and constructive conversation on how do we build a plan for the future and what does it look like as a shared vision. And that includes the general public, obviously. But again, we're often put at a position where we're finding it last minute, and we're then accused of being negative if we speak up and say, well, did you consider this? But the reality is that's the things we have to consider, because there is money at risk, and it's not small dollars. And if you do not build your city where it's attractive for people to invest, money and capital move quickly, and they will move to areas where it is easier to invest.
Okay, Duncan, appreciate your time. Thanks for doing this.
Anytime, Todd.
All right, take care. Duncan Williams, President and CEO of the Construction Association of Nova Scotia. Will Halifax get a third harbour crossing? We'll talk about this with the blogger when we come back.
Facts.
All right, I saw this story in the Chronicle Herald recently. The headline, will Halifax get a third crossing as traffic congestion gets worse? Will Halifax get a third harbour crossing? Joining me to discuss all of this is blogger and on Substack, Deny Sullivan. He's a consultant as well and an economist, and joins me in studio here. Deny, thanks for joining the show.
Thanks for having me on.
All right, so why are you interested in this? Tell me what draws your interest to this whole topic?
Well, I like all things transportation, but this in particular, I think, is just a reflection of the mood that I've been seeing around the city. A lot of people care really deeply about congestion. It seems to me like traffic is a top 3 political issue. And yet I'm frustrated looking around at our leaders not really putting up anything that matches the level of the problem. So we're spending weeks or months arguing about bike lanes on one city street as if that's going to address the problem of this scale.
Why do you think that is? Why has such a bike lane become such a lightning rod and taken up so much oxygen?
Well, I think both sides want to be arguing about this in a way. The city has its own views about trying to shift people from cars into other modes of transportation. And the province in some ways feels differently, especially representing the broader region. And I think in some ways, we've just fallen into this trap of course, we can't do big things, right? A lot of people will say, oh, we should build up public transit, but there's never any money for public transit. So part of this is just trying to get bigger ideas into the ecosystem. And if we're going to have a big fight in the debate about it, it might as well be worth it.
All right. One of the things when we talk about a third bridge is that it's all well and good, but where's it going to flow out to on this side of the harbour, right?
Right. I think that's a classic problem. Yeah. Anybody who's ever looked at it would say, obviously, you'd want to connect into the circumferential highway on the Dartmouth side. Yeah. But that leaves you really vulnerable on the Halifax side because, you can't really dump 30,000 cars onto Lower Water Street or Hollis or any of those downtown streets. So one thing I talked about a bit in my blog was trying to repurpose the rail cut. And that basically would give you a connection from the waterfront all the way to Bedford. And if you look at it on a map, it could actually form the basis of a ring road where you have the circumferential highway on the Dartmouth side and you'd have the rail cut feeding into the Windsor Street Exchange on the Halifax side. Obviously, that's difficult because it's currently being used by freight trains. But I think at some point there needs to be a discussion about, is the best way to use this rail cut for freight trains leading to a port? And I always think about, the only way to get from Bedford to the waterfront currently is, without hitting a traffic light, is by being a freight train. And is that good transportation sense? I don't think so. And it's also going to be our only chance to ever get this sort of corridor or right-of-way through the city, because we're obviously not going to rip up city streets to build a highway. So really, this is the only underused right-of-way that we have, and we should start thinking about whether it'd be useful to use more of it.
So you're talking about a road?
Yes, a road.
So not rail, a road.
I mean, personally, I would love a rail option.
Yeah.
But, people have been asking for buses for decades, and we haven't hardly done that. We can barely keep our ferries running. I don't see the political will to do that level of transit investment. But we might be able to do that level of road investment. And, compared to just staring down the barrel of doing nothing for the next couple decades, I think another road through the rail cut would help.
All right. So when it comes to the bridge, I mean, it's kind of one of these inconvenient truths, right? That the existing bridge, the existing McKay Bridge, is going to, if we drag our heels long enough, then we're going to get past that best point of no return time, right?
Right. And we are approaching that date. And I think that's a serious problem. I think we all know how bad traffic gets when there's a McKay closure. The McDonald is bad, but the McKay really shuts down parts of the city. And, I think it'd be great to spend the next decade trying to do some sort of other alternative so that if it comes to a point where we need to shut down the McKay for weeks or months for a full rehab or, a rebuilding, that we have some other option other than just everybody has to stay home.
How about a tunnel?
I think a tunnel would make sense. Obviously, it's a more expensive option, but sure, that could definitely be a part of it.
Okay, and how do we pay for it? And can you even begin to estimate what the cost would be?
Yeah, well, I'm not an engineer, so I can't speak on the costings of these things, but we're easily talking billions of dollars.
Yeah.
And so that comes to a question. It's a serious question about who's going to pay for it. And I think we're just in a situation where the province has priorities in healthcare. They are splashing money for healthcare, but do they have money for other priorities like transportation or like housing? It seems to me that they don't really. We had the JRTA report released a couple weeks ago, and the province didn't really announce much. They didn't commit to much in the report. And even in the report, they say, traffic is going to get much worse, even if we achieve our goals in this report. So that's why I think it's logical to turn to tolls. We've done this before with the McDonald and the McKay Bridge. I don't think Halifax could have afforded the McDonald Bridge in 1955 without the tolls. And, on opening day, the tolls were about 40 cents. 40 cents in 1955 is about $5 today. So those people crossing the bridge back then were paying a pretty heavy price for that.
And in your opinion, that would be the only, or that the integral, right, to have tolls?
I think it serves two purposes. One, it gets the user to pay. So my uncle living out in Antigonish doesn't pay for the bridge if he doesn't use it.
Yeah.
I think that's a good fairness option. And also, tolls have this way of reducing traffic as well. So we're not, there's no third crossing that's going to fix the fact that you can't fit many cars through downtown Halifax. But if you had an actual serious system of tolls, it would reduce the demand on these roads, and it avoids the problem of inducing more cars, which is what people fear when you're talking about building new infrastructure, is the fact that you might just bring more cars and make the problem just as bad in a couple of years.
Yeah, tied in with all of this, of course, is our politics, and we know that politicians often see things. They view the world through a lens of the next election cycle, right? And because of that, long-term thinking, long-term vision, oftentimes these projects don't get off the ground because of that, right? So are you concerned about the politics and how that might not allow this to happen?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's part of why it's important to have these discussions, because it seems to me like many people are happy to just punt the issue away. But what seems crazy to me is that I don't think that congestion is going away.
No.
And so I'd rather be on the record right up front right now, because it seems to me the most likely outcome is we spend the next 10 to 15 years arguing and doing nothing. And that congestion gets worse. And every time you think it can't get any worse, it'll get even worse. Until some point where we actually do get serious. Obviously, I'd like us to get serious now, but it seems to me very likely that the politicians punt in all directions,
Okay, so when it comes to getting people out of cars, this is something that I suppose in an ideal world would happen. People would take transit, people would bike, people would walk. But how realistic is that, in your opinion?
Well, I think it's tough because we don't want to do the things that get people out of cars. I mean, tolls or congestion charges are one way you can get people out of cars. We aren't very good at funding our transit system to begin with. And I think a lot of people have this idea that, oh yeah, we should just develop better transit. But that's they often think about other people taking the transit. You know, of course, I'll still be able to drive.
Yeah, the train.
It'll still be convenient for me to drive, but other people will take transit. But I think that's always a risk. I think one thing we do know is that we're not achieving that goal. Since we've laid out these mode share targets, we've gone backwards. So there are more people using their cars to get to work in Halifax today than there were 15 years ago. So despite us trying to get that number down, we're going in reverse. And I think a lot of that has to do with how we build. We haven't built enough housing in the downtown core, in the places where you can walk, bike, or bus to work already. I think asking people living in Sackville or Bedford or Cole Harbour to get out of a car is objectively extremely difficult. And I'm not sure that it's reasonable to ask that.
Yeah.
So we should look to maximize the other ways that we can get people walking and get them off the streets.
Yeah, densification.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. All right, so when it comes to the recent removal of tolls on the bridges, do you think that was short-sighted?
Yes. And, you know, we haven't gotten official data on this yet, but some of the councillors at HRM have been told that traffic has been up on the bridges since. I have some GPS data, which seems to suggest the same as well, that especially on the McKay, there are more cars going on the bridge. I think that would have been surprising to many people because nobody thinks about going around the Bedford Basin to avoid a $1 toll.
Right.
And yet, all of a sudden, we've taken the tolls off, and it seems like there are more cars on the McKay. And I think what that goes to show is our transportation habits are not fixed. We can respond to incentives. And it's frustrating to me that, you know, when we have we have plenty of things that are necessities, your heating bill or your power bill, but we don't make them free. And it's only in transportation and road transportation that we have this sense that it should always everywhere be free. And I think especially when you have situations like extreme congestion, you can charge a toll just to get 10 or 20% of the people off the road, and the other 80% are going to be able to free flow.
Sure.
So you don't need everybody to stop driving. You just need a small amount of people to stop driving, and tolls are the best way to achieve that.
Interesting. Denny, where can people consume your stuff, your blog?
Yeah, so I blog weekly on Substack. You can find it Denny, DENY.substack.com.
Okay, Denny. Well said. Let's get you back in.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Take care. Deny Sullivan, blogger. An op-ed, Israel and the End of Innocence with the Gar Pardy when we come back.
Facts.
All right, joining us is Gar Pardy, former ambassador, now retired from the Foreign Service. Comments on issues of public and foreign policy from Ottawa. Gar, thanks for joining the show. We appreciate your time, of course.
Good morning, Todd.
All right, I read your most recent op-ed on Israel and its ongoing, I don't know what we could call it at this point, with Palestine. But anyway, very, very gripping, very, very on point, and it's hard to argue, I would say, with anything that you say. Do you get pushback, Gar, from people? You must with this issue. I'm assuming you do.
Yes, on anything to do with the Middle East, when you write it, there's always a pushback. There are very dedicated people on both sides of the issue living in the country and basically have points of view about what is going on there. I have written in the past on the Middle East, and even at one point a few years ago, there was even a fatwa issued against me, which turned out to be, I have written an article about that, but that's another story. But it is a very difficult issue in which one can write about and try to provide some sort of an understanding of what is going on. And the last article is really one of a series of articles that I've written over the years.
Okay, reading your blog, or reading your op-ed rather, and of course you talk about Israel and continuing to argue that it's got a right to defend itself, and you suggest that this is a war. This is simply no longer applicable. Why do you say that?
Well, because in effect, under internet, and what our firm ground that we can stand on here to the extent, to some extent, is that international law provides an awful lot of rules with regards to when states go to war against other states or other people. And those rules are fairly well established, going back well over 100 years into the last century. And what Israel has done, has moved far beyond what is considered to be a defense. Israel basically has been ever since it's coming into existence in 1948, any number of wars, and it's been very successful in those wars. But in effect, they've been very short-term affairs. Usually some of them, it's 7-day affairs, almost a war, and Israel, the war ends. On this one in Gaza, what we're talking about now is coming up on, over 22 months of war against a people. And they color it in terms of an organization called Hamas. As you know, over the years as well, the Palestinians have come up with any number of organizations over the years that try to protect their interests without much success. And the current one right now that we're into, we're talking, even like most people will acknowledge, we're talking more than 60,000 Palestinians killed. There's probably close to 200,000 wounded children. And really in recent months, there is famine, there is starvation. And this is almost a direct result of the policy of the government of Israel.
All right, and you talk about Hamas. What do we know about Hamas and what it now, when it comes to the potential threat of Hamas? Tell us about that.
Well, Hamas was an organization that back, I guess it goes back now 20-odd years or more, came into existence really and got elected actually by the people of Gaza in 2006 as being the local government for that particular piece of territory. It is most I've ever seen as far as the military side of Hamas is concerned is maybe 10 to 15,000 people, but this was before the war. I think the numbers that you're talking about right now is basically an organization that is, it exists in name, but in terms of any practicality, it's non-existent. What you're finding now in terms of the activities of the State of Israel is really revenge for what happened in on October 7th 2 years ago. So it's not an organization that is in any way able to do any harm to the State of Israel. And so, but yet the carnage goes on, and the latest news, of course, is that the Israelis now intend to try to dominate and destroy the only sort of enclave in the northern part of Gaza called Gaza City, and there's estimates are at least maybe close to 1 million people live in that area, and the Israeli government has announced that they're going to drive them all out of that city into the southern part of the Gaza Strip, close to the border with Egypt. And with all of the attending tragedy that's going to be associated with that, the deaths and everything else, there is no other activity going on either, I think, with as far as the Israeli government is concerned, or internationally, that's able to put an end to this sort of thing. There was a demonstration. There's a fair opposition to the Israeli government within Israel itself. There was a demonstration just yesterday throughout Israel where over 500,000 people protested what its own government is doing. The United States, of course, intervened a few months ago, but all that's happened there is that they have just reconfirmed their support for the government of Israel, and in terms that is brooks no opposition. So there's nothing going on that will see an end to this particular war until such time as the Israeli government change or the government itself is changed.
All right, and of course, intertwined in all this is the United States and its support, undying support, unending support of Israel, right?
Exactly that, and that is really what we're now. You mean it's hard to understand, but you mean American policy these days is one thing today, and it could be something else tomorrow. But the policy and we've seen that with respect to Ukraine and Russia in recent weeks. But with respect to Israel, there's been no really change in American policy whatsoever.
Wow. What about other like Hezbollah? Do they pose much of a threat to Israel in this day and age, or what can you tell us about some other threats?
No, Hezbollah was effectively destroyed. Hezbollah is basically a Palestinian organization in southern Lebanon. Mm-hmm. And Lebanon, of course, really has not had an effective government for the last 30-odd years or more. Mm-hmm. And so there's not Hezbollah was attacked by Israel, maybe, what was it, a few months ago, I guess 2 or 3 months ago, and was effectively destroyed as well. Other Arab states have really, Syria, as you know, is in the midst of trying to put itself back together in terms of a civil war there. Egypt and Jordan, which have agreements with Israel, are standing by on the wayside. They fear that the explosion, when it comes inside Gaza, they're going to have all of those refugees showing up in their countries, and that is not something that they're particularly interested in seeing either. So, when you look at it, there is no positive thing going on that one can think of that might see an end, other than, in effect, the people of Israel themselves will object to the policies of its own government, which is probably the most extreme government that Israel has ever had in its history.
Gar, always appreciate your insight. Thanks so much. We'll do it again.
Okay, Todd. Well, hope someday we can have something more positive to talk about.
For sure. Okay, take care.
You too now.
Gar Pardy, former diplomat, now retired from the Foreign Service, and writes op-eds and columns, and is an author as well. Thanks for listening, everybody. We appreciate it very much. I'd like to thank Vanessa Van Ness as well on the other side of the glass at the control boards, doing a fine job as always. We're back tomorrow at 10 o'clock. See you then.